Now, last little section here on the technology side, lean tech, I want to kind of talk about UI architectural concerns, and just kind of be a little fuel starter here. Let's talk about different things. Like first is client versus server, right? Should you do, client-side rendering or server-side rendering? And I think you know what my answer is going to be. It's what every designer would say. It depends, right? We actually had a big formal debate about this at eBay, a conference one night, debating this very thing. Folks on Twitter and Yahoo and LinkedIn and others were there. And almost everybody on that stage said, well, it depends, It's like the guy in Monterey was trying to get a debate going, but, everybody was like, oh, I don't really want to, well, okay, well, I'll take a side, just the hell of it, kind of thing. But I do think people get kind of trapped this, because, but you have to think about the context. So when doing page to page, then server side, fits pretty well with that. And if you're doing more app kind of stuff like mobile, client rendering kind of fits better with it. You do a mix. Obviously, you do some server side rendering, but what you should have the flexibility to call up JSON, fetch your templates, call up JSON when you need it, and do the rendering. Or you should be able to say, hey, give me the whole thing in one big package. It depends on what you're doing, but that's what we need because we have different kinds of applications and different kinds of pages. And I just think that having that rendering portability is really important. Now, did you follow the Twitter kind of thing where they walked through their whole, they backed off of doing client-side rendering, at least to the level they're doing it, right? And they had their kind of all client-side rendering approach. If you went and got to the pound hash, like go to your profile or whatever, it would basically display the page. They'd go back and call back, and get the render stuff, and they'd render it on the client, and they had like several steps, and it just didn't scale at all. It was very, very non-performant. Some people took away from that articles like, oh, no, client-side rendering is evil. It's horrible. It's the same thing where Zuckerberg and them, Facebook went from a HTML5 app to a native app. HTML5 apps are horrible, and then Zuckerberg even said, well, he said 90. It's have a hard time believing that much. He said 90% of our traffic is still mobile web versus the app. So because people just follow links and they don't. Only 50% of people on Facebook actually have installed the Facebook app. So it's not like, oh, well, everybody's using the Facebook app. So, we get these, people get these, they just read this little thing and they don't really get the nuance of it. When I heard what they were doing, I was like kind of surprised that they were doing what they were doing. It's like, why? Take advantage of the server and else horsepower and scaling to do rendering where appropriate, and then do what you can on the client when it makes sense. Again, it's all about the experience, right? I want to deliver as fast as possible, but I want to have as much flexibility when I'm in a mobile device. I don't want to depend upon too much on the latency issues and the network traffic issues. I want to get as much down as I can, but not too much because it's performance. And I want to be able to do it in such a way that it feels like a native app and don't have to get a complete page refresh, right? So you sort of think of the experience first. And then application versus page. I think people still make mistakes on this, whether something should be an application or be a page-to-page. But, it's really, on mobile, we even have this on one of our apps. I discovered that I was wondering why this experience was kind of crappy, and then I found out that they had actually built an experience that really should have been an app kind of experience. They built it as a page-to-page experience. And they try to mask that, but that's exactly what they were doing, and it was, made it very non-performant. But sometimes you have a flow, and you have all these different paths and stuff like that, and so, you end up, you don't have enough on the client side to figure all that out, so you have to kind of do, server-side logic to let yourself kind of work through the flow, because there's all the business logic there. You went to live there. Now, native versus web, this is kind of a hot debate, and the debate within, PayPal as we go through it. Here's my biggest point on this is that if you built every one of your apps native, you can't A/B test. Well, you can to some degree. You could build a system where you guys kind of where your UI is metadata driven to some degree, and you could probably construct it to some degree to give some A/B testing. But the problem is your delivery model is the App Store, and people have to re-download, update their apps. And I don't know what the stats are on that, but if it's, I'm fairly techie, but I hate updating those apps. Once they get about 100 or 150 to updating, I finally bite the bullet and say, okay, set it aside for a while and update. It may not be typical, but I bet I'm typical with a lot of other people that are non-techie. So if you want to A/B test, how do you A/B test something that you don't even know what experience, people are going to even get the latest experience, right? So you got to depend upon them to do the updates. And then if you got a problem, you got to go through the App Store model of delivery. But if you have, you have a web, at least some part of it is web-based, you can change that behind the URL anytime you want and give them a different experience. If you're familiar with the way we did Netflix with the TV experience, with the mobile experience, the tablet experience, they're all HTML-based and have been since probably late 2009, early 2010, something like that. We made the choice to go HTML5 for the simple reason that we wanted to be able to control the UI. We had all these device companies that we could give them, we already give them APIs, but then they would write the UIs, and we had no control over it. We couldn't learn anything from it. We lost our ability to continuously learn because all of a sudden you got other companies building the UIs, and all you are now is just kind of like this API provider, right? We didn't want that to happen. So we built, we took WebKit, we ported to PS3, got that hardened and working well. And then we created an SDK for device manufacturers. They could just take, for their Blu-ray players, or their HD TVs or whatever, they could take our WebKit, our SDK with our WebKit. Eventually we separated that out so they could have their own WebKit if they wanted to. And they could just install this SDK. And then there was some porting they had to do with the lowest layer to the GPUs, the graphic layer. And we would do that for the larger companies, And then basically, we deliver our UI bits on top of that, from a CDN. You have a boot URL in the CDN that picks the right, experience to deliver down to that particular box, living room, whatever. And then, for our mobile apps and iPad apps, we had our own, native app wrapper and used WebKit views inside that, so that if we had to change the native wrapper, we had to have an update in the store. But for the actual experience inside, we could change that any time because it's just hitting a URL. That way we got around Apple's store policies, and still could deliver the experience we wanted to deliver, right? So that worked really well. So that's something I'm kind of advocating at PayPal, though at the same time, there are some apps, like you're a merchant and you're swapping, like the Square app, we have our PayPal Here app. You want that to have, you don't want that to depend upon latency, you want the app to be there. So there's a lot of reason to have those kind of things native. So there's a strong case again. What does it come back to? Experience, right? That's really what it comes back to. Not so much about the technology, but the experience. I was surprised when I got to PayPal that they had written their own proprietary bridge to go between the native and the WebKit view. Like, why aren't you at least looking at PhoneGap and Cordova? And they had no reason. Nobody had thought about it for a couple of years. And so I just recently had a person I hired, and they were supposed to redo the Android version. So we said, let's just pull down Cordova, and within 2 weeks we had it working and going. It's a standard API. It's Apache project. It's backed by Adobe. Again, open source, right? So I'm kind of like ruthlessly running around the company. If it's proprietary, I want to kick it out. If it's proprietary and you're not willing to open source it, what's wrong with this? Why is, if it's risk models, that's a different thing, right? But UI bits.